Hello, I'm APX and welcome back to an episode of my Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. This is the Let's Play where I've been playing through the various updates that have come out for Minecraft on the Xbox, building stuff, killing stuff, and of course, destroying stuff. And in today's episode, I'm going to be doing something kind of big. It's the combination of all of the big live streams you may have seen recently, where I've been destroying this iceberg biome to get myself all of this packed ice, and indeed all of this blue ice, which I've packed together my packed ice to make. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this packed ice out, or I guess not all of it, but we're going to take a significant amount out, turn it into blue ice, and then place around about 2,500 to 3,000 blocks of blue ice. Because every single huge chest full of, packed ice, like we've just seen right there, condenses down into just, as you can see, less than 2 stacks worth of blue ice. So we're taking a lot of this blue ice, which admittedly was very hard to come by, but we're taking this blue ice, we're putting it in a shulker box, and then we're placing it down. So it's going to be a somewhat kind of, again, momentous end, but also a little bit of a, you could argue monotonous in that way, but it's a big Minecraft task, and that's one of the cool things about the game. Sometimes you have to work real hard, and sometimes the results seem like hard work themselves, but that's where the, kind of fun bit comes in, because it's going to end with a very satisfying boat ride, in my opinion. But yeah, in today's episode, usual Let's Play stuff, taking some blue ice, taking it to a place, and then we're going to be doing lots of placing. It's going to be fun, I think. But just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, in which case I'm very envious of you because you're going to see something quite amazing for the first time in Minecraft today. Basically, having ice underneath a boat in Minecraft does work surprisingly well, and it allows the boat to go faster. If you have packed ice, there's even less friction, and the boat goes even faster yet, which is why it was really cool that when 1.13 rolled around, or the updated quadtech for Bedrock, what actually ended up happening is blue ice came out where even less friction and therefore even more boat speed was possible. To give you an idea of just how much boat speed, this isn't a perfect representation because it's diagonal, but you can see how even with this and even with me sliding off it from time to time, we can go some pretty serious speeds. But this is just a diagonal section. If you have a straight section, or if you perfectly go straight in something like this, the speeds you can get in Minecraft are pretty absurd. You can travel almost close to 100 meters a second. So let's say you had a 3,000 block journey you had to do at some point in your Minecraft world, hypothetically, if you had a 3,000 block journey, you could do that in around about 30 to 40 seconds. And that is why this is kind of a big project, because we have a blue ice pathway that's been planned for quite some time, that I've had many projects that I've kind of bulldozed and whatnot along the way, but today we're finally placing the blue ice to make this possible. So yeah, lots of placing. It's going to be kind of fun to see the progress edge towards it, and as always, the Let's Play is going to be an opportunity to talk about all the other things that have been going on with the, the life in the channel this week, because there isn't really a vlog series on this channel to keep you up to date, and a lot of people want to know, so what's going on, how was the week, what went on, what's new with you, whatever. So first of all, I should clarify, this episode is coming to you from 4 AM basically. I've been trying to sleep for the last couple of hours and haven't been able to, so this is going to be maybe a bit of a weird episode, but yeah, my first kind of big thought around that, because my week's been pretty good otherwise, besides extreme heat and stuff like that. But you can't complain about heat on the internet as a British person, because there's this whole problem where oh yeah, well, it's not really hot there, and it's relative heat, blah blah blah, but people are just haha, I can't believe how silly it is that British people complain about the heat in their non-air conditioned homes that also trap in heat, and also while there's high humidity. But haha, how zany, right? It's fun to make fun of people on different temperatures that I would probably find bearable. It's this weird thing, because the amount you can bear something really depends on your own personal preferences, right? But when it comes to temperature, we throw that out the window and we just say, haha, silly people from Europe who don't understand what real heat is. But leaving that to the side, because I can rant about that every time it comes up, and you better believe I will anyway. Yeah, it's been too hot, I haven't been able to sleep, it's been awful, and I decided, let's wake up, let's do some stuff, let's do some survival. And then I realized, wait, it's blue ice time. That means it probably makes sense, in fact, it definitely makes sense to spend some time and do the Let's Play, so we can celebrate this moment together, because this much blue ice placing, this much progress being made, this kind of walk across my world is going to be a fun moment. But yeah, so I didn't sleep tonight basically, or I'm going to sleep very late. I'm not sure which one it really works out as. I just know that 5 AM is when McDonald's switches to breakfast, and there's a 24-hour McDonald's not too far away from me, so I've got a hype day coming up today. But yeah, so I was thinking as I was waking up, or rather stopping, laying down uncomfortably in a warm bed, not sleeping, I was thinking as that was happening, what, I'm just tired all the time. There's never been a period in my life where I haven't been tired. And although I think there's like some truth to what I was thinking there, I think like I definitely am more, you know, I don't think I've ever had a period of my life where I always get good sleep. I either get way too little sleep and I'm tired, or I get too much sleep and I'm tired, or I get, you know, what should be the perfect amount. And what do you know, I'm still tired a lot of the time anyway. I don't know what's wrong with me, but there's just no such thing as a perfect amount of sleep. As far as my body can tell, I'm just always in this, like, you know, switching of, like, rough sleep to really rough to kind of rough. And, yeah, as I was thinking about that, it made me realize something, you know, like a big thing that happens to most people, but you don't necessarily realize. Cognitive biases are a really real thing that it's hard to, you know, properly adjust for in your own mind. If you don't know, when you think about things, you assume you're recalling from a perfect memory data bank or whatever, but you're not really. You know, you're recalling a very specialized selection, which is why, you know, the driving example of this is like, well, you assume you're at red lights way more often than you're not, because when a green light's there, you don't think about it. When there's a red light, you're frustrated. It leaves an emotional impact, and, well, that was scary. It leaves an emotional impact on your brain, and therefore you remember it more. And the same thing with being tired, right? You don't remember the times you're not tired because that's life. I mean, like, who thinks specially about times that they're, you know, not tired? Not many people. Also, quick little special moment, but cool Bedrock exclusive I like to show off whenever they show up. When it snows in Minecraft, at least in certain biomes, the tree leaves actually change as well. Isn't that nice? So yeah, this taiga biome, only in Bedrock, don't ask me why only Bedrock, looks like this. Kind of offsets some of the Java differences, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, yeah, isn't this nice? We're going to go to sleep for the night, we're going to end this snow, and then we're going to get right back to the pathway. I think my nearest bed actually is in this jungle. Huh, isn't that a fun little thing? Or rather I should say former jungle. Again, one of the, like, this is part of a big project that I've been working on. You know, the reason I'm making this video is because a lot of you might not want to wait for the, you know, the 2 weeks or whatever it might take to finish the whole project that it's a part of. But yeah, basically I'm working on this huge project, and as part of it, just to have space to build near the Blue Ice Pathway, because when you build a, you know, like a good transport connection in your Minecraft world, or maybe indeed in the real world, it's important to have big things that are actually worth going to along the way. And yeah, although there's a plains biome over there, I thought that jungle has such perfect grass, so I didn't burn down the jungle. I think I chopped it down. I burned down a couple of trees for fun, but I chopped down the jungle. I have an absurd amount of jungle wood now, and yeah, you might recall those projects. Also, just to prove that it was a snow-only thing, there's the same taiga biome that we were just at, and look at it now. As it turns out, now it's just a regular taiga biome because it's not snowing. It's one of those features that, like, most people don't play Minecraft when it's raining. You know, rain is snow, if you don't know, just depending on the biome. Because most people don't play Minecraft when it's raining, and most people don't spend their time in taiga biomes. It's something that, like, I would say even 90% of Bedrock players don't know. But yeah, it's a cool little exclusive. Anyway, cognitive biases. They're a real problem because, you know, like, as far as thinking, like, oh no, I'm always stopped at reds, is that really a problem for your life? I mean, probably not, unless you start to advocate for, like, you know, I wish to have traffic lights be green all the time. Like, you know, red traffic lights are targeting me, and therefore I should wear a tinfoil hat to stop them knowing where I'm at. You know, that sort of logic, can, you know, you can always end up down that rabbit hole eventually, and, you know, it's not necessarily a good rabbit hole to end up down. In fact, it's very much not one. But, yeah, it's problematic because there are so many things that we massively overestimate because they leave an emotional impact. But, you know, and, you know, that not only works for, like, negative things to us, but also sometimes we underestimate, you know, things that are hugely impactful because they don't leave an emotional impact. A good example, for instance, is the things you're probably most scared of, you know, maybe like a burglary or, like, I don't know, murder or something, are not the things you should be the most scared of. Like, the biggest causes of death are never the ones that match up with what people think. People always think it's murder or this or that or whatever else. But no, the way it actually works is, like, if you live in, I don't know, Los Angeles or, you know, somewhere in the fault line, maybe like New Zealand or something, you should be terrified of earthquakes. Earthquakes kill people on a surprisingly regular basis, and it's pretty random. Like, that's a terrifying thing you should be thinking about. You shouldn't be thinking about, like, oh no, there's been a murder last year. It's like, there are very few places where murder is a real risk for you, but there is everywhere in the world where, you know, obesity and diabetes and cancer, you know, these are real risks you should think about and actually can take steps to avoid. That's the funny thing. Like, how do you avoid a murderer? You can't really, right? Like, if there's a guy who's like, you know what, tomorrow I'm gonna kill Andrew, you know, like, I'm gonna kill this, you know, internet cat guy, or maybe like I guess it feels weird when I say it like that. But if someone just wants to be like, I'm gonna kill you, William McWilliamson, that's your name, subscribers now. But if someone wants to kill you tomorrow, it's hard to avoid him, right? I mean, especially if he knows you and you don't know him. Very tricky. We kind of have a society based on the idea that like, yeah, let's have people not have incentives to kill me because, you know, very hard to avoid that, very terrifying, destroys trust in the fabric in society. Whereas something like, you know, again, diabetes is a very, not diabetes, I think there's a lot of very common deaths that you actually should be worrying about, right? Like your diet, for instance, which I think actually does contribute to one of the forms of diabetes. But, you know, like your diet can control so much. That's a thing you can control and you could be thinking about. I don't know, the amount you exercise, the amount, you know, like of, you know, various different things that you do. There are so many activities we do which are super, super harmful while thinking about like, oh, well, I mean, but the real issue is murder. We really should be watching out for knife crime and, you know, like this and that. And, yeah, it might sound like, okay, so you've just proven to me that like, oh, we can't pick that up yet. And because blue ice is really slippery, it might fall off the edge. It didn't fall off the edge. So we'll come back after we wasted a stack. We'll just pray it doesn't go away. But yeah, this is mostly a fault of the, you know, the media or whatever, because, you know, the media puts excessive, you know, time onto things that have this emotional response because, you know, their entire thing is based around getting emotional responses. And it leads to this kind of scary feedback cycle where not only does your own brain do it to you, but the outside world kind of confirms what your own brain wants to believe anyway. And it's something I've always thought we should fight against. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of the way your brain functions that you should accept. Like, that's how things are. That's just how things be over there, right? But there's also a lot of it where we've got to be like, well, I mean, you know, the human brain, like 1% of people naturally are sociopaths. You know, you know, it's something like 0.0, you know, 5% of people naturally do want to kill and hurt other people. I worked out the stats recently for a Minecraft video about how many murderers played the game. I think it was like 24,000 people play Minecraft who have been either a murderer or the victim of a murder. So, I mean, there's a fun fact for you, by the way, but that sounds scary, doesn't it? Like, wow, 24,000 murderers playing Minecraft. The best bit is when you dive into that and think about it more, you're like, man, I've probably played, especially if you play a lot of multiplayer, I probably played like Skywars or Bed Wars against someone who has literally murdered a person, and that's just the ones we know about. I mean, there's probably a lot of unreported murder that doesn't get you know, worked out and stuff like that. But yeah, it's true that like, yeah, when you're talking about large sample sizes, pretty much any outlier is going to make their way through it, and these are things that, you know, we should naturally try to avoid. Or at least I think so. Anyway, so what's been going on with my week, besides just being hot and complaining, because that's, I think, like the national pastime over in these parts. And honestly, I mean, what has been going on besides that? I sometimes like to say, because, you know, so if you don't know, it's been No Fly July. I think I've been pretty much successful. I've got like a few more days where I could mess it up, but for the most part, I did go an entire month without flying, which is the lamest accomplishment to most people in the world. But again, travel is like my favorite hobby. Finding cheap travel is one of my favorite things to do, and that's why that is, like, at least to me, an accomplishment. Or you can just look at that and say, wow, Toycat over here being the bourgeoisie or whatever, isn't that kind of crazy? Whichever way you choose to take that, that's your kind of perspective. And I've always yeah, liked that as an attitude. Like, you're not, rather than assuming X or Y, you can also just take that as a part of someone's personality. Something I'm really bad at doing is, like, whenever I hear, there are certain things that, like, enrage certain centers in my head. Like, when someone says something, I guess that's, like, particularly predictable given their, you know, let's say their place in, or, like, you know, their location in a country, or, like, their particular job makes them say a thing. It's like, well, I mean, you're saying that because you've been, you know, trained to say that by the people around you. But yeah, like, we put ourselves in like, oh man, I'm wasting so many fireworks just on faulty block placing here. Which is why, if you're ever doing this over a pit of lava or something, always a good idea to crouch. Again, every video this comes up, I have to clarify, how do you place blocks in front of you like this? It's a Bedrock feature because, yeah, you can do it like this on every other platform, but on Bedrock it works a little bit more intuitively. You can just place out in front of you, as if you're placing on the side of this block, but without having to, like, rotate your view, which I think is kind of cool. But yeah, so I've had a pretty good week otherwise, for the most part, I would say. Although, I don't know, like, whenever I have these weeks where I'm mostly at home and mostly making videos, the days blur together to some extent, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, my life has slowed down so much. The last 3 weeks have felt like they're so much more than normal. And it's a big crisis because I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's desirable to have life slow down. Because, I mean, on any, you know, basic level, when you examine it, you're like, would you like a fast life or a slow life? The answer should probably always be like slow life, right? Because, you know, like a longer life rather than a shorter life would be a better way to put that. But I mean, like, you know, is fast and slow necessarily analogous to, you know, like long and short? Is it better to have a fast, short life than a slow, long? I don't know how that one really works out. But, you know, it's weird that, like, yeah, it's every day has been, like, even though they go by pretty fast when it's like, oh, yeah, I spent 14 hours this week working on a new Minecraft run, and I don't know if that was even a particularly good idea after I finished it, because there was some deaths near the end. It's a whole fun thing. But, you know, like, when I work on something like that, it's like, well, I mean, was that a good use of my day? It felt like it the whole way through, and then at the end, I felt really good. But then also, it meant that the day kind of vanished as a result. I think this concept of, like, vanishing days is terrifying, because we only have so many days. I think I worked out in a recent video, like, you have roughly 30,000 days in your life, so, like, you know, not very many, I would say, or also a lot at the same time. And when you lose one of those, even if you lose it to something great, like, I hope people enjoy that video, for the fact that it took me a day. You know, really, spending a whole day making videos, like, it's something I feel like is a thing I do to, like, give back. But really, it's probably a poor use of time regardless, right? Like, you should probably never be doing something like that. Also, nighttime again. Let's find another bed. I think I've got one over here. I am correct about that. It's a red bed too, best type. But yeah, sometimes a day vanishes and it feels really good on one angle and really bad on an entirely other one. But I guess, again, as a whole, the time has gone slower as a thing. And yeah, I know, it's one of those things that makes you reevaluate, like, YouTube priorities. In the last year, I've seriously stepped up the amount of time I spend on every single video. And I'd say more time has gone from planning, which is still a significant amount of time, but into actually making a video. It's very rare to have a video take less than an hour of recording time before you even consider editing and, like, you know, all those sorts of things. So, like, the amount of time to make even shorter videos has gone up significantly. One of the longest planning videos is going to be one that's significantly short. This is something that's going up in the long term, and I think it's something that's really easy to do when you're just looking at results. But it's hard to consider the own effect on your health, I guess. Like, I guess it's hard in general, like, ever, to consider effects on your health. Because your health is such a nebulous concept. Like, you know, I'm healthy now. I won't be healthy in 60 years' time. I mean, yeah, that's just a guarantee. But I mean, like, you can delay when it happens in between now and then, right? I feel like I'm rambling to some extent there. But yeah, no, there's a lot of, like, balances and trade-offs that are always happening that you're not really aware of until you start to think about them in the concept of, like, losing a day. And that's why I think, like, really well-structured lives are something that are good for most of the population. A lot of people hate that, like, wait, so every week you've got to work 30 or 40 hours or whatever, that time is just gone. But I mean, like, 30 or 40 hours as a proportion of the total isn't actually necessarily too much. There's my Nether Fortress, by the way. Hope you like it. Yeah, it's not necessarily you know, like, too much by itself when you think about it like that. But the fact that it gives you something that's like a fixed thing every day helps give you a frame of reference for everything else. Like, having, you know, like, the day system and the week system, and, like, the fact that we have you know, the fact that there are pretty consistent measurements of time is really useful, because you might think that, like, oh yeah, a year is a year. It doesn't matter if you measure it or not. But I think a year actually does change over time. The amount that a year means to you changes significantly as you grow older, because the older you get, you'd figure, like, oh yeah, well, again, your brain measures time, but in the same way your brain isn't, like, storing memories. It's got a very nebulous, you know, like, collection of things together. It's in the same way, your brain isn't actually storing you know, like a tracking of time. Instead, you're just using memories as a good reference point. And because memories, you know, as a percentage of the total are going to be going down each year, every year gets faster. The easiest way to think about this one, because this was always true for me at least, is when I was in school, you know, in the UK, you get 6 weeks of summer holiday. Maybe it's more for some places, maybe it's less, I don't know. But we got 6 weeks, and the first few times that 6 weeks happened, it was eternal. Like, my life was flipped upside down, and then I wasn't ready to go back to school because I was just that unfamiliar with the concept. But then towards the very end, 6 weeks was like, oh yeah, you gotta plan that or it vanishes and you're right back at school. before you even imagine it. And yeah, the fact that something can go so rapidly from, again, infinite to, like not that long is kind of a crazy thing. And yeah, in that same way, I wonder, like, if years and, like, if big periods of time get shorter, I wonder if, like, small periods will too. I wonder if that's why, like, oh yeah, I'll just spend an hour sitting because, what I normally can do, like, if you don't know, one of the things I recommend is meditation. Not as like oh yeah, meditate in the Buddhist, like, religious blah, blah, blah way. I just mean, like, clear your head of all thoughts a couple times a day because otherwise, otherwise you get overwhelmed with thoughts, it's depressing, etc. But yeah, one of the things I do, like, I like spending even 15 seconds to just clear my head of all thoughts and be like, hey, I'm only gonna let the important thoughts through. So, like, kind of like notifications on a phone, I find my head fills with things I don't want to be in there, but I feel obliged to think through. In the same way that, like, you receive a message from someone, you don't want to talk to them, but also you have to because otherwise that notification stays there forever and it's a whole thing. In the same way, my brain's filled with all of those all the time. Just spending a second to clear your notifications or whatever the iOS version of that. I'm assuming there's a button on iOS where you can just make them all go away. Spending some time to just do that. Spending some time to just make things good, to just make things calm again, is something that always, goes far for me. And yeah, I guess rather than rambling all day about, like, man, time and cold and hot and stuff, I can just, end on a better positive and say, even though your brain isn't accurate, and I think the important thing is not just knowing, like, okay, your brain is just a tool. It's not a particularly useful tool, but it's the biggest one you've got. Work out what its weaknesses are so you can augment it. The wonderful thing about your brain is it's the best equipped thing to deal with any of the shortcomings of your own brain. As absurd as that sounds, like, being able to work out, like, oh, I'm irrationally angry right now for no reason, as soon as you know that's a thing, because I used to think everyone knew that, but they just enjoyed being angry. I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, oh yeah, you're actually just really hungry right now, and that's why you're being, like, I don't know, so melodramatic or whatever. I thought that people knew that, but they just enjoyed this sort of stuff. I thought I was convinced that everyone knew when, they were being, like, irrationally angry, that they just had an excuse to be that way. And, maybe that's, like, a bad train of thought to ever have in your head. But realizing that that's, like, oh yeah, that's actually, those are inefficiencies that are in your brain that I have to be able to correct for. But what I can't correct for is thinking that everyone just knows that sort of thing. Like, knowing the shortcomings of your own brain is something your own brain can do. And in the same way, isn't it kind of crazy that the brain named itself, man? Isn't it kind of crazy the brain is the only thing that can fix the brain? I mean, I guess besides a brain surgeon, but that's still another brain, isn't it? The brain is the only thing that can repair the brain. The brain is the only thing that can improve the brain. And the brain is the thing that named, and indeed that creates the brain to begin with. I think that's insane. I think that either this is the most profound nonsense 4 a.m. Toycat thought, or that is a very real thing. Also, it happens at a perfect time, because we have now reached what is probably the end of this. Again, we placed about 2,500 blocks. We could go further, and I think it's likely that we will, or maybe have, like, a water elevator over here. Again, I don't know. The end of this is something I'm kind of cautious of planning right now. For now, what I want to see, from here all the way of my Let's Play house, actually, let's go a little bit further, just like a few more blocks. But from here all the way of my Let's Play house, which we can now officially see, all the way to the Ice Islands, which currently take, by flying, it's something absurd, like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Let's see how fast we can do this using a boat. And by the way, when we use a boat, we don't use fireworks. I really should have picked up the boat earlier. But yeah, there's a boat just down near the near that thing over there, the Nether Fortress thing. Which, side note, I want to mention legal issue time. Apparently there are legal issues with me adding the Ocelot skin to my world download, because I'd be charging for something that is actually Microsoft/4J made. Because obviously this isn't my skin, it's just my skin. So, fun fact, legal update. We're gonna try and get through various different variants of it, which is what I wanted to add anyway. Like, I didn't think anyone was going to download the pack just for the Ocelot skin, but fun fact, if you want the Ocelot skin, you have to download the YouTube skin pack. It's free. It's not a me thing. It's just like it's not called the YouTube skin pack. Sorry, it's called the Legacy skin pack. It's not a me thing, it's just a thing that does exist. And second of all, as far as legal issues go, I thought it was interesting that I learned recently you can't, say certain things about your map. I think I have to be fairly non-specific, but you can't call your map the best or the top rated or whatever. You cannot use any label like that for your map, so fun fact is that. And also, someone pointed this out to me. I know it's a little bit ironic. I don't know what the word actually is, but the fact that I had all those legal things that I was dealing with, and then I later built this anyway. And just to clarify, wasn't even entirely my idea. But I am curious: is this the sort of thing that gets picked up by whoever reviews that internally? Because I don't know for sure. Will that give me some legal or map-related issues? I don't know. But if it does go away, then you can assume that it did. There we go. That's the Canary version. It's really funny because, when it comes to not disclosing certain things, there's this really fun thing where, tech companies can't disclose. It's one of my favorite things. Is they've got Canary. I think it's called a warrant canary. Tech companies can't disclose when they've been asked by. I think it's the FBI maybe, but by any agency to take information from their users. So to prove that they. Because they can't share that they have, what they can share is that they haven't, and then they can legally remove that notice at any time. Not necessarily because they haven't, but they can do that anyway. And it's a good way of saying, oh yeah, we can't tell you that this has happened, but we cannot tell you that it's not happened. And in the same way, there's the Minecraft map version of it. Also, look at this speed. This is a beautiful thing. Oh, no, okay, the third person is not the best person. Okay, so this is going to be much better if you put support rails on, or if you leave a boat on here that goes on the perfect tracks. But you can see how, okay, wait, let's line this up actually perfectly. A little to the right. Again, it's really hard to actually start when you're on here. But still, even with all of these inefficiencies, the speed we're getting on something that takes no fireworks is pretty insane. Yeah, we're definitely going to just break the boat and try and put it down flat. Because you need to have these things be perfectly placed. The pro tip a lot of people miss, because it's really slippery otherwise, is to... Please don't fly off. Is to have the boat placed perfectly straight. So we're going to look perfectly straight on, and then look down like this. That's slightly sideways. Yeah, there it is. But yeah, there is a way to do it that way, and that's the best tip. Otherwise, what we can do for fun, because I feel like we went through all of this effort stage just for this ride, rather than doing it so perfectly. What if we did it imperfectly? Because isn't that what this video was? It was an imperfect deal on the internet. That's what the Let's Plays to some extent are. They're perfect in their own way. They're a deliberate imperfection. They're something, unlike the, I would say, more polished, more time, more etc., everything else on the channel, it deliberately is just oh yeah, this is me playing Minecraft. This is what I've been up to in this wonderful game that we all presumably enjoy. And maybe that's the thing you enjoy from it. And just in case it's not, I finally lined it up properly. So here is the alternative that you can do. Here is me traveling, as you can see, looking at the Z coordinate on the left, me traveling an absurd distance, so fast that I seem to have broken the rendering speed of Minecraft itself. This is speed unparalleled, and I think we're going to hit a wall very shortly, so I think bad things are going to happen. Oh, God! I have no idea how or what just happened there. I guess I didn't actually have a barricade that I thought I did, but still. That's how fast you can travel when things go right, if you line up your boats just right. And as long as you, are very careful about lining up your boats, it's easy enough to do. That's something I'm going to have to work a little workaround to make it easier to do. Maybe you could have, a fence post to perfectly direct it forwards. But yeah, a lot of people think you need fence posts, but that's just a workaround for an efficiency. As long as you can place your boat perfectly straight, which, to the best of my knowledge, the best way to do is just, walk forwards, try and look straight forwards, try and place boat. And we messed it up there. But yeah, if you can do this perfectly, it's very fun. And even if you can't do it perfectly, it's still a great bit of fun. And I totally recommend, make yourself a Blue Ice pathway, because mine now stretches for 3,000 blocks. And when it goes well, it goes really well. And it's also a lot of fun. So thank you very much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Xbox Update Adventures Let's Play. If you did like it, you can like it and let me know. If you really liked it, you can share it. And I mean... who shares Let's Plays? I'm not sure anyone does, but if you do, it's appreciated. And you can subscribe with notifications turned on if you want to see these every single Monday on your homepage. I have fallen off in a very tragic part of town, but hopefully the same doesn't happen to you. And if it does, then I hope that you enjoy it. Or maybe I hope that you think that it happens not as often as it does, because your brain doesn't remember things that your brain does correctly. And if that's the one message you can take away from my thinking this week, then so be it. Anyway, thank you for watching, because I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.